This is the Diamond Hawgs Podcast with Mason Choate and Robert Stewart.
There's not a lot of ego going on with our staff. It's all about let's win what's in front of us today, and let's try to get to the big dance at the end of the year and do some damage.
We're back for season 4 of the Diamond Hawgs Podcast. Mason Choate, Robert Stewart with you for the 2024 edition of the Arkansas Razorbacks, who might be the best edition of the Arkansas Razorbacks during the tenure of this podcast. I will say the 2021 team, that speaks for itself, obviously, the way the season ended. But this one, Robert's in Washington, D.C. now. We're going to get into what's going on in our personal lives and everything else. But, Robert, you haven't really seen it much, but this team's good, man. If they can stay healthy, we've already had a Peyton Stovall injury, but if they can stay healthy, man, I feel like DVH has put all his chips in the middle of the table this year.
Well, and we've talked about this on the podcast before. I mean, it's predetermined that this is their year, right? 64, there was a football title. 94, there was a basketball title. 24, baseball title. It's in the cards. I'm glad to see that DVH is sticking to the script here, and I'm excited to see what the program has in store for us.
All right, if this is your first time listening to the podcast, this is just your favorite Arkansas baseball podcast from now on. That's all it is. It's interesting to see that some have popped up since your boys have started, but we're the OGs. We are the premier Arkansas Razorback baseball podcast. We're part of the HawgBeat podcast network. HawgBeat is HawgBeat.com. That is the Rivals website covering the Arkansas Razorbacks. I'm trying to think. No. We talked about this on some of the old podcast episodes, but I'm the publisher of HawgBeat.com now. I own the website. I own the dang thing. And so that's where you can find this podcast and all of our Arkansas baseball coverage. Look, nobody's doing it like us. That's how it's been. That's how it's going to be. And that's how it's always will be, okay? HawgBeat.com, Arkansas baseball coverage, that's where you go get it. So shout out to the website. And I'm Mason Choate. I'm the publisher. Like I mentioned, Robert Stewart, he was here for a while. Now he's in D.C., but he's been on the pod from day one. We're season 4, and so we had to get Robert back. I'm excited to have you back, Robert. It's going to be a little bit weird. It's a little bit weird right now because normally you would probably know more about the team than I would.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an adjustment period for me not being in Fayetteville, but I'm doing well in DC. Last time I left off, I took an internship copy editing, took a few months off after that, still copy editing in a different paper, making more money than I thought I'd make in my first job, real job out of college. So, things are going well for me, but just because I'm not there doesn't mean I'm going to stop paying attention to Arkansas baseball. I mean, I really got hooked on watching those guys going out balling in 2017, 2018 before I even got to school. So, just because I'm not there anymore doesn't mean I'm not gonna act like I cover the team. I mean, I'm not gonna be a poser, right? But I'm gonna come on here. I'm gonna watch all the games. I'm gonna do my best to give an informed take of what's going on with Arkansas baseball.
All right. Well, we have a loaded episode for everybody today. We've been sitting on so much information. We've tried to record a podcast already. We thought about it. We probably could have, but we wanted to wait for a few reasons. One, because even on this podcast, we're probably going to have to put in little bits and clips from after we watch some scrimmages. So for context, we're recording right now on Friday morning, February 9th. We have an interview with Bobby Wernes. We're going to have Bobby Wernes on the podcast today. Very excited about that. We haven't had a coach, so that's exciting, and he is now a paid assistant for the Arkansas Razorbacks. So I'm really excited to just pick his brain, ask him questions, get to know some more about this team and some more about just how things go on behind the scenes. Obviously, he can't reveal everything, but, maybe we'll get some good details. And then, maybe we'll have some guest appearances. I don't know. Anything could happen, but this is going to be a loaded episode. We're just going to throw a ton of information at you because it's been an entire off season. Okay. We haven't talked to you since May, June? When was it? When did the season end, Robert? Do you remember?
The regional was in June, early June.
Yeah. So it's been a long time since we have spoken to the people. So here we are, and we're going to get right into it. So this team, picked preseason by the coaches to win the SEC, and 2 first-team All-SEC selections preseason in Hagen Smith and Kendall Diggs. No surprises there. Maybe you would say Diggs might be a surprise. Like not from an Arkansas perspective. Just I feel like he hasn't gotten a ton of preseason hype nationally. And I'm calling him the best kept secret in America right now. Like as of right now, this dude has taken Hagen Smith, Mason Molina, and Gage Woodyard all in like I think the span of a week in the preseason. He's that good. He's been so good, Robert.
Yeah, and you can't forget what he did last year either. Like I think about that weekend in Starkville when he drove in 10 runs in the series, right? That's just an encapsulation of who this dude is. And we even saw it before that when he was a freshman. The walk-off home run against Ole Miss, it's definitely one of the best moments of his Arkansas career, if not the best moment. I'm trying to find his stats here. Looking at it, he hit 299 last year with an OPS darn near 1,000. I mean, the dude's for real, and if people don't know about him, then it's only a matter of time because he's going to be one of the premier vets in the SEC and probably the country, as you said.
And the interesting thing about Diggs, you mentioned his freshman season. He played inconsistently, but had some big hits. The sophomore year, even like his role was not defined really because he ended up having to go play in the outfield. Ended up becoming an everyday outfielder. It was shaky at first, and now he's pretty defined or refined, I think is the word I was looking for. He's sharp. He's a much better outfielder. When he went and played summer ball, he was on SportsCenter top 10 twice, maybe, I think.
Remember when he robbed that home run in Athens last year?
He's good in the outfield. We can say that now, officially. Kendall Diggs is a good outfielder officially. We can say that. So yes, I think he's the best kept secret in college baseball preseason right now. Obviously, there's so many other guys out there, and that's just from a 100%. That is a homer take for sure. And then the Hagen Smith thing, like we don't even have to explain that. He's going to be so good. He's been so electric. He's been throwing 100. He's been sitting 100. He's just so good. We're going to talk more about Hagen Smith, but what else do we have? Preseason honors. Yeah, you just say Hagen Smith. He's been honored by everybody. Do we really need to go through every single collegiate baseball newspaper that has named him preseason first team All-American?
No, but we can also mention the fact that he's a projected top 10 draft pick, which is huge.
He is. And, I keep telling people, man, like here's the thing about being in my position or maybe Robert, you probably got this a lot, in the past. Everybody asks the same question. How's the Razorback baseball team going to be this year? And every single time I just say, if they can stay healthy. And it's always like, I kind of just 3-4 times a day maybe think about Hagen Smith. Not in a weird way. In a way of like, man, that guy has to stay healthy.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, he's going to be instrumental to the success of the pitching staff and therefore the team, right? The last 2 years, you think about it, losing Jackson Wiggins preseason and then Peyton Paulette the year before that. Knock on wood, it's been huge to avoid that kind of thing so far. But yeah, Hagen Smith, it's always been about pitch count down. If he can do that, and obviously you've been at the scrimmage, so you can speak to that better than I can. But if he can keep his pitch count down, he's definitely going to realize his top 10 potential.
I think he's definitely, how do I put this? The pitch count's down, a little bit. I think what he's doing is he's keeping his velocity throughout, 1, an inning, and 2, just like an outing in general. That was a big thing with him last year was he would come out and, the adrenaline would be going and he'd be throwing like 97 when he would start. And then, by the time the third inning rolls around, he's sitting like 93, 94. And so I think one of the biggest things is he's been able to keep the velocity consistent I wanted to pull up his last outing because I feel like I remember him struggling slightly. Yeah, so this was Friday, February 2nd. Hagen threw 2 innings, scoreless, gave up 1 hit, struck out 3. He faced 9 batters, and he had 2 walks. So like it was kind of a little bit of the Hagen Smith experience for a minute there. But I feel like you mentioned pitch count. He threw 36 pitches in 2 innings. What do you feel about that? That's okay.
We'll take it. Anywhere under 20 these days, an inning is pretty solid because that puts you on pace to get through 6, and that's really all you can ask for a starter.
Okay, so yeah, man, I feel like I'm not worried about Hagen whatsoever about like performing. I'll just say that. Like I don't even feel like we have to talk about him that much, to be honest with you, just because his game speaks for itself.
Right, and he's got 2 years of SEC experience now, so you would think he'd only be able to build on it.
By the way, how have we not had Hagen on the podcast?
I'm trying to remember like if we've tried to do that. He's always sort of soft spoken, doesn't have much to say in interviews, so
Yeah.
maybe that has something to do with it. But maybe he comes out of his shell a little bit more this year, and we'll have him on.
Yes, he's a team captain now, so you would hope that he at least is more vocal with the team. With the media, he can do it however he wants, but I'm sure the team voting him as a captain speaks to how he is around the players. So, other captains, by the way, Kendall Diggs and Peyton Stovall. So, just
No surprises there.
Yeah. Stovall, by the way, 2 years in a row. Shout out.
Getting the nod as a sophomore was pretty big, so especially
Yes.
no surprise that he's doing it for his second year.
We're talking about preseason honors, and one thing that I did want to bring up. So most of them are for Hagen Smith. Like that, I mean, it's almost all Hagen Smith. You have like a Kendall Diggs thrown in here and there, but there was an interesting one I saw the other day, and I'm scrolling as I speak because here we go. This is from the National College Baseball Writers Association. They gave Vahiva Aloy, the transfer shortstop from Sacramento State. We're going to talk plenty about him on this podcast and this year. They gave him a preseason second-team All-American nod. So I feel like I talked about the best-kept secret in college baseball being Kendall Diggs. Vahiva Aloy's not far behind him, and maybe this is my fault because I tweet about him a lot, but word is getting out on Vahiva Aloy.
Yeah, I mean, like obviously I haven't watched a single inning of scrimmages because I haven't been there, but I mean, I'm reading this dude's name a lot, and so I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to bring to the table.
Okay. Up next, so we mentioned Stovall. That'll lead us into preseason injuries. Peyton Stovall, broken foot, watched it myself. Just hit by a pitch. Was it Tate McGuire or Colin Fisher? It really doesn't matter who the pitcher is. I don't want to like call out a pitcher. But he got hit by a pitch and his right foot kind of shook it off, got back in the plate or in the box and hit a single. Actually it was ruled a double because he rounded first and just like couldn't go anymore. Like he started limping and kind of sat there for a minute, went back to the dugout. And interestingly enough, he went out with his glove to second after. And he was like limping out to second and they were like, "Dude, what are you doing? Get back in the dugout right now." And so he goes back to the dugout. You could tell he looked upset. But then they let him go back out and hit again. And he hit a single. And then he hit it and then immediately turns and walks back to the dugout. Like he's not even gonna go to first. And so
Did he
like
at least have a ghost runner?
Yes, and well they put an actual runner on first for him. Both times. And so yeah, man, it's a tough break. You hate it for Peyton Stovall because he had just come back. He'd only played in like 3 or 4 scrimmages, shaking off the rust from the shoulder injury last year, had a season-ending torn labrum, and was finally back, and then he breaks his foot, man. That's got to really hurt you mentally, especially as a team captain. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, injuries, they're the worst. They just are. And yet this one, like, somehow seems like they got away with something, right? Like if I'm, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think it requires surgery.
No, it does
And
not require surgery, and it's 4 to
and
6 weeks. So
and it's the least important 4 to 6 weeks of the season. So,
Yeah.
if it had to happen, it's a good time for it, I suppose.
let's see. Have you done the math on what 4 to 6 weeks is? So it happened Monday, February 5th. So you just go March 5th.
I mean, there's a chance he'll be back by the time SEC play starts, which is mid-March.
SEC play starts on March 15th. Yeah, I think he could be back by then for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So it's not. Look, obviously, you would like to have him. Arkansas is going to play some pretty decent non-conference games even before SEC play starts. You look at the college baseball series. We're going to be there. We're excited about that. Oregon State, Oklahoma State, Michigan. Murray State's a good non-conference. McNeese State's a good non-conference. They play Oral Roberts, who went to the College World Series on Tuesday, March 12th, right before SEC play starts. So
Yeah,
yes, it's not important, but the opponents are going to be tough.
Yeah, it's a great slate, right? We had the discussion so many times 2 years ago about the RPI being a factor that hurt the Hogs. Of course, we got to watch a pretty fun June that year, so it didn't matter too much. But Dave is clearly making a point of not making the same mistake twice, right? We saw it last year. They ended up being the number 3 overall seed, I think. And then this year again, like you said, Oral Roberts, the College World Series team, bunch of conference title contenders, and then of course, myself included. Oh my gosh, I can't wait for the college baseball series in Arlington, getting Oklahoma State, that rivalry going again, and it'll be the first game against Oregon State since, well,
Yeah, man. You know what? You know how I do my my countdown to Arkansas baseball videos. Jersey number lines up with the day, and there's so many times that like I want to clip something from the first game of that national championship series, but you just can't do it because as soon as you put a clip of Arkansas Oregon State out, I mean like, because we all know how that story ends, and it's not good. It's not pretty. But yeah, no, it's exciting. We were at Swatters Club for DVH on Monday, and he said he was talking about Rock Reggio, and he said there in Stillwater when he brought Hagen Smith in. I don't remember which game that was. I don't know if that was the final.
it was the final.
Okay, so when he brought Hagen Smith in at the end, he was talking about how Hagen's just always been built for the moment. He's just always has been. And even in that moment, Hagen was a freshman. They were, on the road, Stillwater Regional, and he knew that Hagen was going to get it done. But he said he struck out Super Rock Reggio, and he said it in like a, like Super Rock Reggio, like, making fun of him, and everybody laughed. It was a good time. So I don't know if DVH is a super big fan of Rock Reggio one, but maybe there is a little rivalry there with Oklahoma State now. That would be fun.
I mean, after that regional, how can there not be? That was 3 of the most epic, 4 of the most epic days of baseball I've ever seen consecutively. Like 100 runs combined in the last 3-4 games. I don't know. It was incredible. I mean, and think about the semifinal to get to face 2-0 Arkansas between Missouri State and Oklahoma State. That game was like 29-15. Missouri
Yeah.
State led by almost double digits in that game. It was crazy.
Missouri State, another team that Arkansas will play in the non-conference this year, and another team that Dave mentioned at Swatters Club, and he said they do not like us. And he made it very clear, like, so I think their head coach, what's the name of Missouri State's head coach? I'm a bad college baseball fan for not knowing.
Well, he retired, didn't he? Keith
No,
Gutman?
I think this is his last year.
Okay.
I think Dave was saying this is his last year, and he didn't say it, but he was basically like, I'm not super upset about it.
I definitely, you or Hutch or somebody sent that to our group chat. Keith Gutton, yeah, is about to be on his way out, but that is his name. Keith
Yes.
Gutton.
Okay. All right. We kind of got off topic there for a minute there. Preseason injuries is where we were at. So Stovall out 4 to 6 weeks. Hunter Dietz, freshman left-hander, hard-throwing, big lefty out of Florida. I think he's 6'6". He had a stress fracture that's gonna keep him out until April. So it could be early April, could be late April. You know, that's just kind of what we were told is April. But he's expected to contribute, and you know he should be. He's good. He's a really really good freshman lefty. He did really well in the fall. You know, he's one of the freshmen that the D1 baseball guys came and watched, and then went back and wrote a lot about him. So normally those guys pan out. So Hunter Dietz,
Wasn't Parker Rowland one of those guys last year?
Parker Rowland, who like say what you want, but he ended up being the everyday catcher. So
Yeah, he did.
But I think
none of
they
us
were,
saw that one coming, but they did.
I think they were raving about his bat, and obviously that did not end up being why Parker Rowland was in the lineup.
Well, yeah, but he had his clutch moments for sure.
He did. No, I'm not dogging on Parker Rowland. I mean, Parker Rowland, if he went out day one, opening day against James Madison, and was the starting catcher, I wouldn't be surprised. So, and we'll get into that more. Other injuries. I'm trying to think.
Did I hear you say something about Brady Tiger?
No, don't even put that out in the air. Nothing about Brady Tiger.
My lips are sealed.
Your lips don't need to be sealed. There's nothing to say about Brady Tiger, but it's like that rumor had already been started and I debunked it. And so like,
as any good journalist would. Good work.
The funny thing, it's not funny, but the ironic thing is when I went digging for the Tiger thing, I discovered the Dietz thing. So that's how that got discovered. Now let's see here. I can't think of any other injuries. I mean, Dylan Carter's recovering from UCL, torn UCL, had Tommy John. I do think that DVA said on Monday that he's ahead of schedule. You know, I've heard from sources very close to the situation that Dylan Carter is ahead of schedule. So, kind of wait and see. But that's another arm. I mean, like that's a dude who ended up being like super productive for Arkansas last year, and you just add him to the rotation this year.
I mean, the kind of guy that would get you 6, 7, 8, 9 outs in a game. Like he was, you know. Shout out to former producer Christian for being on the Dylan Carter hype train, man. He knew that guy had some special stuff in store. So yeah, I mean, obviously he would be a huge arm to have back. But you know, with this UCL thing, with pitchers, you really can never be too careful with it. So
yeah,
shouldn't bring him back until he's 100%, in my humble opinion.
In your humble opinion, okay. Those are the preseason injuries I can think of. Let me pull up the roster and run through it because I know people are gonna have questions. They're thinking in their head like, how could you not mention this guy? And so I'm just gonna
how about another pitcher who got hurt last year, Cody Frank? What's the story on him?
Cody Frank's 100%, man. You know, he literally just does not throw fastballs. All he does is off speed, and it's almost everyone is in the dirt, dude.
I mean, Kevin Kopps seemed to make that work pretty well. So,
you know what? Cody Frank's a 6-year senior.
I didn't say it, you did.
But I've only seen him throw a few times this preseason. He tore his lat last year, for those who don't know. Very disappointing. He's a former transfer from Nebraska. Had him on the pod. You know, he's great. A great interview. So it's disappointing. But I believe he's either gotten engaged or married and had a baby since last season. So
dad strength coming at you.
Yeah. Maybe he'll get the baby bump for the season. You know what I mean? Let's see. Any other injuries here? Tucker Holland, actually, I think. So Tucker Holland, he's a freshman left-hand pitcher. You know, this is bad radio right now, but I gotta do this because somebody's gonna have a question about it. Tucker Holland, we asked DVH about this at Swatters Club. He said it's not a surgery. It's a bone issue that is bothering him. It might just be a situation where we have to let that heal for a while. There's no reason to try to rush him because he could get really hurt.
Well, and especially for a freshman arm, you know, having an injury before the season starts, he immediately screams to me to be a candidate to redshirt.
Yeah. Here's a big one.
Definitely don't rush him back.
I missed this one, forgot about this. I was there for when this happened as well. Ben Bybee has a hamstring issue. He actually started a Monday. I don't remember the date. It was think the first Monday scrimmage they did, and just like pulled up his hamstring, man. Like he just like was pitching and then looked uncomfortable, and they pulled him right away. And I don't think I've seen him since. I haven't seen him pitch since. DVH said it's a bit of a hamstring injury. He did it over the holidays working out, tweaked it in the summer a bit. Bothered him a little bit in fall ball. They're not going to throw him this weekend. He's irritated with it that he's not throwing. He wants to pitch, but they need him healthy. He's got another pitch or two this year, so that's good. He's bigger and stronger. He throws a lot of strikes, but it's a bit of a light hammy per DVH for Ben Bybee. So I'm sure it's just like day-to-day wait and see.
Yeah, and again, we talk all the time about how the first month is the perfect period for experimentation. Let Bybee get healthy. I know you got a bunch of other arms out there that you could test out, see if they work. Great to hear that Bybee's added pitches to his repertoire. Always nice to make yourself a little bit more unpredictable on the mound. And he faced some adversity last year. Georgia comes to mind right away, but I remember talking to him at a midweek, and he seems to be able to flush that kind of stuff pretty fast. And I'm fascinated to see how that core of sophomores, him and Fouch and Gage Wood, grow in year two.
Yeah. All right. Just two more here, I believe. I hope I'm not missing anything. Josh Heineman's redshirt freshman right-hand pitcher. I believe he had Tommy John. I don't really know the timetable on that, but I'm almost positive he won't be ready for the season. I haven't seen him throw. So, Adam Hackman or Hawkman or Hatchman. I think it might be Hatchman, actually. Freshman out of Wentzville, Missouri, freshman lefty. Very impressive prospect. You look at him, number 1 overall prospect, number 1 left-handed pitcher prospect in Missouri by perfect game. So a pretty big-time arm. A lot of people ask about him. Here's the thing. He did not have Tommy John. Everybody says he had Tommy John. He did not have Tommy John. This is straight from Dave Van Horn's mouth. He didn't have Tommy John. He had a little short of that. I forget what they call it right now. It's not quite so invasive, and you recover quicker. Should be healthy enough to throw sometime during the spring. And then he said that Hackman will just have to show them when he's ready. So we don't know when that's going to be. So that rounds out the injuries. And now we can get to our lineup preview, Robert. This is what everybody wants, the lineup preview.
Yes.
Let's get to it. All right, time for the lineup preview. Robert had to step off the podcast, so it's just me with you, Mason Choate. So let's get into this thing. So there's going to be a lot of new faces for Arkansas baseball this year. And then, that's the expectation, right? You're so used to it, especially now in the transfer portal era of not only college baseball but just college athletics. It's you're just going to have new faces. So Arkansas brought in some transfers. Some returning guys are going to be in the lineup as well. Some freshmen, have impressed, and let's get into it. So we talked about the Peyton Stovall injury. He would be hitting leadoff and starting at second if he was healthy, I feel like. So he has the broken foot, out 4 to 6 weeks. We talked about it earlier. That is what it is. Obviously, he had the shoulder last year, so he had a torn labrum. You could tell that it affected his swing. I don't really think it affected him throwing very much because he was only really throwing from second to first, but fielding, he was fine. So I think the broken foot doesn't help. It's unfortunate. It's terrible for Peyton Stovall, but I think that at least with the shoulder injury healed up, hopefully he can hit better. And that's what you hope for, because you look at Stovall in the postseason as a freshman, and I mean, some of the numbers are actually just extremely impressive from the postseason. So through their 11 postseason games in 2022, he led the team with a .429 batting average. He had 2 homers and 13 RBI. Tied with Michael Turner for the team leading hits as a true freshman. So, that's a guy that you want to have healthy. But in his place, I think they're probably going to go with Peyton Stovall at second, and I would guess he would be leading off as well. I went to Friday scrimmage, and Holt played some second. Jared Spraglott, the transfer from Richmond, he played some second. I'm trying to think. I don't remember if I saw anyone else out at second, but I believe Holt was with the starters and he led off. So we'll go with Holt leading off to start the season at second base. Let's go with that. Peyton Holt. They call him the spark plug. That's what we're going to call him. I need to come up with like a good Twitter meme to post with him when he does something good. That's kind of my thing. But he's a senior, former Crowder College guy, former JUCO guy, but he's out of Greenwood. If you're an Arkansas native, you know that Greenwood is just like a factory for producing Division I athletes for some reason. So last year, Holt played in 31 games, started 19, hit 392, 2 homers, 17 RBI. So here's the thing about Peyton Holt. And this, I was talking to somebody about Peyton Holt recently. And basically, it's like he's just always better than you expect him to be, which isn't saying anything bad about Peyton Holt. He just continues to exceed expectations and he continues to be good. And at one point, do we say, okay, he's not this role player coming off the bench, just, providing a spark as the spark plug, but he's a legit, starter in your lineup in the SEC. I think that's where you're at with Peyton Holt right now. If Stovall plays and if and when Stovall's healthy, Holt will go to third. Sprague-Lott could play second too, but I think they want to play him at third right now. Anything can change. Look, I'm not Dave Van Horn, but this is kind of what we're going based off of what we've seen through scrimmages. So Holt at leadoff with Stovall hurt. If Stovall's healthy, Stovall at leadoff and at second, Holt at second with no Stovall being healthy. Okay. All right. Moving along. I actually need to pull up my lineup. I didn't have that pulled up. That's very stupid of me. All right. Number 2, second in the order. Now, here's the thing. The order is kind of weird because the lineup has been loaded in scrimmages, 1 or 2 times. And it was a little bit different, but I think Hudson White in the 2-hole, the transfer catcher from Texas Tech, I like that. I feel like that, I feel like he's going to start. And that was a question for a minute there because the catcher position is one where Arkansas, has 4 legit guys who could start at catcher. And we're going to talk with Bobby Wernes about that later, by the way. He's going to go very far in depth. So I won't get super in depth with it. But I would have Hudson White, the transfer from Texas Tech. The big thing last year or prior to last year in the last offseason was that Arkansas didn't really get a splash transfer. But Hudson White is 100% a splash transfer. He was an all Big 12 honorable mention last year as a sophomore at Texas Tech. As a freshman, he was Big 12 Freshman of the Year, Big 12 All-Freshman Team, Perfect Game Freshman All-American, first team, and a Collegiate Baseball Freshman All-American. Started 58 games as a freshman, started 44 as a sophomore. Hit 296 last year, 11 homers, 49 runs batted in. He can hit. That's the good thing. Like last year, the big thing with the catcher position for Arkansas, no offense to Parker Rowland or Hudson Polk, but look, they didn't hit the ball very well. The numbers tell you that. That's just true. Parker Rowland was an incredible defensive catcher, and I think you'll see Parker Rowland, you'll see Hudson Polk at some point, and you'll see the freshman Ryder Helfrich. But I think Hudson White is probably the best option. I think Helfrich might have the highest potential or highest ceiling. White's the best option, but Rowland has been hitting the ball really well. Polk has been hitting the ball really well. We know Rowland's a good defensive catcher. He caught a lot of the Arkansas pitchers last year. So I don't know, I'm curious to see if like maybe there's a pitcher that is more comfortable throwing to Rowland. I haven't noticed that, but it's possible. But yeah, I'm going to go with Hudson White in the 2-hole, the starting catcher. I don't think they're going to have, a starting like an everyday guy decided by opening day, but it's pretty clear to me based on what Dave Van Horn has said that they would like to have a guy, as everyday as possible. Obviously, you're going to have to play. You might have to catch 2 guys a weekend, but I think they want to have somebody who's going to play the majority of the games, and I think Hudson White is that guy. All right, moving on to number 3. Let's go. Kendall Diggs. We're going to go with Kendall Diggs in the 3-hole, starting right fielder. We talked about him earlier in the podcast, just there's not much else you can say about him. He's a junior. He's just ready to take off. Probably going to be his last year in a Razorback uniform. I would expect that. So that's nobody else is going to play in right field unless Kendall Diggs gets hurt. I mean, knock on wood, at some point we need to get over the talking about, potential injuries. Like that's just, it's part of the game. It's part of what it is. I hate being a superstitious person because I hate when when I say something about an injury and then I get like a sick feeling in my stomach. So let's agree to not do that. So Kendall Diggs in the 3-hole. I feel like there's not much else to say about him. What else can you say about the guy? He's just really good. And he lets his bat do the talking. So we're gonna go to the 4-hole cleanup. Let's go with shortstop Vahiva Aloy. Vahiva, transfer from Sacramento State, was just like an all everything freshman last year at Sacramento State. He's from Wailuku, Hawaii. I hope I said that right. So here's the honors for Vahiva Aloy as a freshman in 2023 at Sacramento State. Collegiate Baseball Freshman All-American. First team Freshman All-American from D1 Baseball. First team Freshman All-American from the National College Baseball Writers Association. First team Freshman All-American from Perfect Game. Second team Freshman All-American from Baseball America. What the heck, Baseball America, are you thinking? ABCA All-West Region second team. WAC Freshman of the Year. All WAC Freshman. Or no, just all WAC in general second team. Started 55 games, played in 56, and they're calling him a consensus freshman All-American. No, we won't do slash. We'll just say average 376. OBP was 427, hit 14 homers, 88 total hits, 69 runs scored, 46 runs batted in. I mean, this kid, this Vahiva Aloy is incredible. He homers in almost every single scrimmage. He's homered off of Hagen Smith. He's homered off of Mason Molina. He's homered off of Gage Wood. He's homered off of Parker Coyle. He gets the job done in the field. He's really good. He's just really good. Okay, so let's go to number 5. In the 5-hole, we're gonna have Ben McLaughlin. And I think we're gonna have McLaughlin at first, just because I think he played first at least once last year for Arkansas. A former JUCO transfer from Hutchinson Community College. He's a senior. Started 21 games, played in 28 last year, hit 346 for Arkansas. I mean, this dude just rakes. Kind of like Peyton Holt last year. Like he just continued to, every time he went out, he was good. He just continued to hit, and I think you're going to see more of the same. I'm interested to see how things go at first because he won a Rawlings Gold Glove Award in 2022 at third base for Hutchinson Community College. So I'm just interested to see how it goes. Jack Wagner could start at first as well. And that's who we're going to have next up in the 6-hole, probably is Jack Wagner, transfer from Tarleton State. McLaughlin or Wagner, you could switch them. One could be at first, one could be DHing. Either way. Wagner can also play in the outfield. He could play left field. He's a grad transfer, 6 foot, 210. Last year at Tarleton State, he hit 337, 15 homers, team high 56 RBI. Started his career at Kansas, played 4 seasons at Kansas before going to Tarleton State for a year. So he played Big 12 ball for a while. Jack Wagner, he can rake, man. He's had some balls off of his bat that you're just like, oh my goodness, that's just insane. So yeah, I like Wagner. Wagner or McLaughlin are going to play at first. One of them, I mean, I feel like both of their bats need to be in the lineup. So okay, let's keep it going here. What do we have in the 7-hole? Because I can't remember. What positions have we done? We've done first, so we need a third baseman. We need a center fielder, and we need a left fielder. Okay. So in the 7-hole, I think is going to be Spraglot, maybe 7 or 8. You could go Spraglot or Jason Jones. So Spraglot's going to play at third, transfer from Richmond. Jason Jones, sophomore. He's going to play in left. I mean, that's what I would have him in. We'll talk about him. Let's go with Spraglot first, though. Senior, native of Philadelphia. Dave Van Horn has called him the best infielder on the team. He started 53 games last year at Richmond, hit 314, 13 home runs, 43 runs batted in, team high 60 runs scored. I don't see anything about his fielding right here, but played 3 seasons at Richmond. And so now he's at Arkansas. The Stovall injury, obviously, is boosting him into the lineup, but I think he was right there anyways. So You'll have Spraglot at third in the 7-hole. So in the 8-hole, we're gonna go with Jason Jones. Dave Van Horn basically said Jason Jones, he's got to get the mental aspect figured out. And so that's where he's at. He last year played in 20 games, started 13, only hit 196, 2 homers, drove in just 6 runs, scored 12. Went and played summer ball in the Northwoods League and did really well. I believe his team won the title, the Green Bay, maybe. I don't want to say that wrong, but Jason Jones played in summer ball for a long time. So he's been playing baseball for a while. You just look at him when he came into Arkansas, he was the number 1 overall prospect in the state of Texas by perfect game in the 2022 class. Turned down money to come to Arkansas. And he's got, I mean, I feel like his bat could be as good as anybody in the lineup. He just has to, I don't know. It's unfortunate with Jason Jones because I really like Jason Jones and I really want him to do well. But I'm looking at his preseason scrimmage stats right here. 48 at bats, only 12 hits. 6 of them doubles though. 1 homer, 4 runs driven in. 18 strikeouts, 8 walks. Yeah. So that's from media members who have gone to the preseason scrimmages. That's the stats we've come up with. So he's just struggling. I don't think I've noticed him do anything wrong in the field, so that's a positive. But as far as at the plate, I feel like he's still got a long way to go, unfortunately, which is tough because, like I said, his bat could be as good as anybody in the lineup. He has so much raw power that if he could just figure it out, I don't know. I'm not a baseball guy, or I am a baseball guy, but I'm not a baseball coach. So I can't tell you what he needs to figure out. But I do think he's at least going to be the opening day starter. I said Jack Wagner could play in left. Missouri transfer Ross Lovich could also play in left. He's a senior transfer from Missouri. Another name to watch is Hutchinson Community College transfer Will Edmondson. So same community college that Ben McLaughlin came from. Edmondson's a junior. He's been impressive. He all he does is hit. He hit 454 last year in 58 games for Hutchinson. So that's just insane. That's dude's he's almost getting a hit in 50% of his at bats. And he had 205 at bats. So that's pretty impressive. 93 total hits and 205 at bats. I mean, that's really good. It was JUCO ball though, so we'll have to see how that translates. And then in the 9-hole, last but not least, we're going to go with center fielder Ty Wilmsmeyer, the transfer from Missouri. So Arkansas grabbed a pair of transfers from the boys up north in Missouri. I mean, just terrible baseball program. If you listen to this podcast, you know how I feel about Missouri baseball, who, by the way, swept Tennessee last year. Remember that? So Wilmsmeyer started all 54 games in center last year for Missouri. Hit 311, 7 homers, only drove in 25 runs, but let's be honest, it was Missouri. How many runs were they scoring? Not very many because they're not good. Led the team in batting average, 60 total hits, and he's really good in center. So he had a bunt single the other day off of Mason Molina on Friday, so that was good to see. As Dave Van Horn would say, that was good to see. So yeah, he's gonna hit in the 9-hole, probably gonna hopefully be like an on-base guy, like a Zach Gregory type. So, and I know some of you are, speaking of on base, I know some of you are wondering who's gonna be the Moneyball guy this year. Every time he gets on base, I post the Moneyball clip where Brad Pitt in Moneyball just says, maybe it's Jonah Hill. He says because he gets on base. Yeah, it's Jonah Hill when he says that. So. So that's the lineup. Those are the starters. Let's go through a couple of the names who could potentially sneak their way in there. And I'm going off of this. This is so much easier because I can see everybody's face. I blurred my background so you can't see on the YouTube, but it's just a piece of paper with their faces. Okay. Let's see. So the guys that I think could potentially make their way into the lineup. So I talked about the guys in left, Lovich and Edmondson, Hunter Grimes, redshirt senior, former JUCO guy, another name to watch in the outfield of someone, if injuries happen, Grimes could make his way into the lineup. Catcher, we're going to talk about that more, but Ryder Helfrich is a name that, he could catch. He could also DH. I don't know. Hudson White, I will say, who I'm projecting to start, he can also play first or DH. And that's about it, really. I'm thinking of any of the freshmen who could potentially play, but I want to say Ryder Helfer's really the only one that I could see getting in, especially earlier in the year. Ty Wade, also a catcher. He's a big guy. Nolan Souza is a freshman out of Honolulu, Hawaii. Good infielder, big guy. Dave Van Horn said he could play tight end. So yeah, so those are Reese Robinette. How did I miss Reese Robinette? Big country. On Friday he had two doubles off of Hagen Smith and who was Jake Faherty, who I'm going to talk about here in a minute. But yeah, Reese Robinette swinging the bat well, plays a good third base. Big country. Just keep him in mind. Oh man, shout out to Robert for leaving me alone right now. I'm sorry. This is the first episode of the season, and some of you are just sitting there and you're like, "What the heck is this?" I promise it gets better. And on Friday we're gonna have an incredible episode, our full weekend preview for opening weekend. So get excited for that. Let's talk about some pitching real quick, and then we'll get to Bobby Wernes. Incredible interview with Bobby Wernes. So the starting rotation, we talked about it. Hagen Smith, Brady Tigert, Mason Molina. I would guess Molina on see, here's the thing that I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna go with so it's obviously gonna be Hagen the first game, the Friday night. He's the ace 100%. I don't know if they're gonna go Molina Saturday, Tigert Sunday, or Tigert Saturday, Molina Sunday. Because Molina's been throwing on Fridays and Tigert has been throwing on Saturdays in scrimmages, I think. So that I don't know, but those are the three starters for sure. That's your rotation, and we'll see how that shakes out of what day. And then the first series, it's 4-game series. So whoever's going to start on the Monday game against James Madison, I don't know yet. We mentioned Ben Bybee has the hamstring. I feel like he would probably be your number one option. Some of the freshmen could start. Gabe Gackle, he could start. Tate McGuire has been impressive. Colin Fisher has been impressive. So they have a ton of names. And so let's go with the top bullpen arms right now because we mentioned the starters. Well, we should talk about Mason Molina actually. So Brady Tigert's fine. He's healthy as far as I know, throwing the ball well. We mentioned Hagen. He's at the top of his game. If you're a Razorback fan, you should know those two names by now. But let's talk about Mason Molina for a second because he's a lefty transfer from Texas Tech. And I want to tell this story real quick because, now it doesn't really matter. But I knew about Mason Molina before most people probably within the program knew, and it was just by chance. I had a good friend of mine, send me a text just out of the blue one day and was like, "Hey, do you know Mason Molina from Texas Tech?" Or no, he didn't even say that. He just sent me a screenshot of Mason Molina and was like, "This guy's committing to Arkansas." And he wasn't even in the transfer portal, had never heard his name before, reached out to some Texas Tech people. They had no idea. Reached out to some legit national reporters. They had no idea. And so I just sat on this information for like a couple weeks telling people like, "Hey, here's a name to watch." And, eventually he hits the portal and then commits to Arkansas. But the way that this guy found out was because Mason Molina was paired up with a friend of his in California, which is where Mason Molina's from. He's from Rancho Santa Margarita, California. That's a mouthful. So this random dude, who I'm sure Mason doesn't even remember, was just paired up playing with him, playing golf. Just paired up playing around a golf, and Mason, I guess, told this dude like, "Hey, I'm gonna go to Arkansas," and by some chance, this guy knew my buddy who lives in Arkansas and texted him, and that's how I found out. So Mason Molina, 6'2", 230. He's a big boy. He's a big boy. He was all Big 12 second team, and then also Big 12 all freshman team his 2 seasons at Texas Tech. Started 16 games last year for the Red Raiders. 6-2 record, 3.67 ERA. Struck out 108 batters, walked 35. He's good, very good. He's gonna sit low 90s on the fastball. Got some nasty off speed. He's gonna be a solid starter. You want to talk about a splash transfer? Mason Molina was another splash transfer for Arkansas. All right, let's get to the bullpen. I think your normal do it all, pitch 3 times a weekend, bullpen arm is going to be Will McIntyre. I mean, the guy. Is this his golden spike season? I've been calling for it for 3 years now. He's a redshirt senior. He could do it. He could have his Kevin Cobb season, but I think Will McIntyre is probably going to throw, 2 to 3 times a weekend. I think you could call him your bullpen ace right now, entering the season at least. So I think he's ready for it. I think he's ready for the moment. If you just keep going down the list here, Cody Frank, transfer from Nebraska. I don't even know if he throws fastballs. It's just nasty off speed the whole time. It's disgusting. I mentioned Jake Flaherty, a name to know. I feel like he's finally taken the step up. We always knew Jake Flaherty could throw heat, but now he's a junior and he's locating and he's throwing strikes. He was an all-star in the Cape Cod League over the summer. So he's a junior. He's throwing it hard. He's locating. He's been impressive. Jake Flaherty, a 6'3" righty. He throws hard. I mean, like, he's 97, sitting 97 on the fastball. So we mentioned Bybee. He's one to watch. Christian Fouch and Parker Coyle, 2 other sophomores. Coyle's a lefty. Fouch is a righty. 2 other sophomores, both 6'3". Both, they each bring different things to the table. Fouch, a big 230-pound right-hander. Parker Coyle, a little bit smaller. He's 190. Doesn't throw as hard. Kind of has a little bit of a weird release. But they like Parker Coyle a lot. So I would keep his name in mind. Man, I feel like I'm just talking so much right now. Gage Wood obviously is going to be the closer in my mind. The sophomore out of Batesville, a very emotional pitcher. He's looked good this preseason so far. He's not been dominant by any means, but I think he's working his way to being the legit closer for Arkansas. Stone Hewlett, transfer lefty out of Kansas. Dave Van Horn calls him a left-on-left specialist. So basically, anytime they got a left-on-left that they need to get an out, I feel like Stone Hewlett is a good option. I like him a lot. And then there's like just so many. That's the thing about this pitching staff is that you look at every name and you think maybe this guy could do something aside from Josh Heineman, who had Tommy John, I believe. And then Dylan Carter, who's working his way back. His mom actually said he's about ahead of schedule as well. So the freshman, though. So I mentioned Gabe Yackel, really good hard-throwing righty freshman. Tate McGuire out of Liberty, Missouri. He's really impressed me in the preseason. A right-hander freshman. Let's go through the other freshman righties real quick. Adam Hackman, a lot of people like this guy out of Wentzville, Missouri, highly touted prospect. Could pitch this year. He had something similar. We talked about him earlier. He had something similar to Tommy John, but it wasn't. And then let's see. Any other right-handers? Cooper Dossett, sophomore out of Springdale. Dave has mentioned him. I don't know how much he's going to pitch. Jaewoo Cho out of South Korea, the freshman. He's kind of got some nasty stuff, but he sits high 80s on the fastball. Nothing that's going to blow you away too much. Diego Ramos, another freshman out of Oklahoma, right-hander. So some of the lefty freshmen, let's talk about them. Jack Smith out of Moulton, Alabama. Haven't seen him throw a ton. The lefties I would keep my eye on if I were you. Colin Fisher out of Noble, Oklahoma. He's thrown much better than I thought he would. I've been very impressed by him. Throws the ball hard, throws strikes, not really afraid of who he's facing. And then Hunter Dietz, the lefty out of Trinity, Florida. We talked about the injury, the stress fracture. But whenever he's healthy, that dude, Hunter Dietz is going to be good. He throws the ball, I mean, like 95, 96 on the fastball. He throws like a veteran. He's good. Okay, I think I got it all, folks. I think I got it all here. Any names that I did not mention? I don't think I mentioned Cade Smith, freshman out of Searcy, Arkansas. He's an outfielder. Like I haven't seen a ton of him, to be honest. I'm sorry, Cade. Tucker Holland, freshman out of Fayetteville, North Carolina, not Fayetteville, Arkansas. Lefty, 6'6", 235. I believe we talked about him. He's a little banged up, so we'll have to see with him. But other than that, I think I hit it all. I think we did it all. I think we got it. All right. Well, thanks for listening to me ramble on about the roster. You know, it's one of those things where we got to get it out of the way. We got to talk about it. A lot of you don't even know a lot of these names. And so, you know, I feel like I'm talking a lot, but maybe you're learning some good information. So I hope that you did. And we have an incredible interview here up next with Bobby Wernes, assistant coach for the Arkansas Razorbacks.
You're listening to the Diamond Hogs Podcast with Mason Choate and Robert Stewart.
All right, we now welcome on Bobby Wernes. He's in his 4th season as an assistant with Arkansas, 1st season as a full-time assistant. Bobby, just how has that been going? You know, how much has your job changed very much now that you're full-time?
Yeah, I guess thankfully no. I think that my first 3 years, you know, they did a really good job. I had a lot of responsibilities as a quote unquote full-time assistant would have. So, you know, the transition to full-time has been really easy on that front. I think my wife appreciates getting a more consistent paycheck, but other than that, it's pretty much the same gig.
So after a brief minor league career, you come back to the program you played for, and you take a job as an assistant. And you know, we've got Dave Van Horn on the record as saying you've turned down several pro jobs since then. What is it about Arkansas that made you come back? That's made you stay so long?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of reasons. I think the main thing is I just had such an unbelievable experience as a player. Truly once in a lifetime, happiest days of my life, especially in the game of baseball. So I think just kind of deep down, I want to recreate that for guys in a variety of different ways. However, we can do that as a staff. So I think that's kind of the reason is I knew how much I loved it as a player. And I mean, it's obvious. I mean, it's exceeded my expectations. I love it even more now as a coach.
So I'm sure you can feel it. You know, the hype around the program right now, preseason. It's pretty crazy. There's a lot right now. So like from your perspective, has the team been able to kind of like block it out, or are you embracing it? What's that been like?
Yeah. And honestly, maybe I'm a bad person to ask because once we get to January, February, I try to stay off the Twitter, the X, the Instagram, whatever. So I don't really have a good feel for, like you said, like, you know, the hype. I feel like we have a lot of hype every year going into spring, which is obviously a great thing to have. You know, you'd much rather that than the opposite. I think we have the right amount of guys, or we have the right type of people that, you know, don't let it get to their head, so to speak. We have a lot of experience, a lot of returners that have kind of done the song and dance before, so to speak. So I don't think the guys really feel the weight or anything. I don't think it's crazy different than, you know, years past.
When it comes to like scouting opponents, how far ahead of time do you guys start looking at a specific opponent, and what are you telling your guys to look out for? What kinds of things?
Yeah, no, that's a loaded question. I guess in terms of the duration for this opening series, you can start it as early as you want. Obviously, there's no real you're going off the same information. It's just last year's information. We try not to look. We try to kind of complete the previous series before. So like we don't like really digging into like a week ahead's opponent while we're playing somebody else, if that makes sense. So for example, you have James Madison, which we've been on for probably the last couple weeks. And then Sunday is going to be when we kind of kick off that Arlington trip scouting report, which that'll be a zoo for myself and the other guys that are into the scouting, because I mean that's 3 whole reports for a week. So it won't really be the volume of that won't really be matched, I guess, until hopefully you're fortunate enough to be in a regional. And then it's kind of that same workflow. I like telling people, the second part of that question was what you're kind of trying to get out of it, what you're trying to get to the players. I think we do a really good job, and something we try is like us as coaches put in like hours behind the scene so that you as a hitter, you as a pitcher, it can be summarized in like 30 seconds what needs to happen. And so it's just very much about just playing the game, and the information side is just a lot smaller, a lot simpler. So yeah, I like to think that we have about a 30-second couple sentences on each arm to where it's just very simple, very concise. Our guys know how they're going to try to be attacked, and they have a plan to combat that.
So when you talk about a plan to combat something, I think about the plan that you guys have had with injuries, at least, last year. And I mean, now you have Peyton Stovall, really unfortunate, the broken foot. What is it about, like, I mean, how much are you guys, planning for injuries maybe before it even happens? Because it seems like, at least, last year and right now, you've been able to just kind of, like, yes, it's unfortunate you have an injury, but another guy's ready to step up right away.
Yeah, no, I think that something, it was either Coach Van Horn or Coach Thompson said last year. I think this was a Coach Thompson thing, saying to the hitters, is he made a comment like, everything can be used to your benefit if you allow it, even injuries. So I think the easy way to think about it is, obviously it's super unfortunate to Peyton for Peyton. He missed time last year and he's excited, better than ever, and it's like, boom, it's going to be delayed a little bit. So in terms of for Peyton, that's a very tough pill to swallow in terms of he's not going to get to start his season with James Madison with the rest of us. I think as a team, you can use that into a tremendous positive. You're going to have people that maybe weren't going to get opportunities with Peyton in the lineup. Now they are. Now when Peyton comes back, you're a deeper team than ever. And so you're not going to get those answers at the start of the year, maybe in the middle of the year. But I think at the end of the year, looking back, injuries can be the best thing that happens to a team. And we try to take that perspective, using everything that happens for our advantage.
Talking a little bit more. Oh, sorry, Mason, go ahead.
I real quick, I wanted to ask you about Peyton and when he got injured. So at the scrimmage on Monday, it was a really interesting scenario to me, because he got hit and then stuck in the box, got a hit, rounds first, and then starts to limp, and then he tried to go back out and play second, and then he comes back in and hits a single. What do you think about him? Like, and then he got hit again in the leg. So, like, I mean, what do you think about that and just him, just fighting through that, even though it's a scrimmage?
Yeah, no, I think that's who he is, and I think it's who he is, and I think he's about ball, he's about baseball. He's not, looking for attention or drama or anything. And I think when it happened, he had no idea that there was a little break in there. So he just, got hit in the foot and was just going to keep playing. And I think even if you talk to him, I said, man, I'm not in a ton of pain, but I think it's some kind of, if he tried to push through it, maybe there's complications down the road. So it's better to just get this addressed now, kind of take it, so to speak, for this first part of the season, so that he's good to go for the end. But yeah, no, I just think it speaks to who he is, like his character, and it's about baseball for him. He just wants to win, and yeah, I hope that answers your question.
You talked a minute ago about the depth of the team and how they're going to have to show up, in the face of injuries and things like that. In particular, the guys who were around last year who didn't get just a whole bunch of playing time. Are there any of those dudes in particular that stand out to you that have really made progress on their games over the offseason?
Yeah, no, I think you got my roster right. I mean, I think there's, everybody on the team that was there last year that's returning has definitely taken a step forward. And I get that's kind of a cop-out answer. But I mean, I think about our two catchers in particular. I mean, the strides that the returning catchers, so Parker Rowland and Hudson Polk, it's like the strides they've made, especially with the bat, is just like super eye-opening. Again, that's kind of a cop-out answer, but I'm looking at our list of returning hitters. It's just everyone's taking a stride forward. You kind of have to. It's kind of like you got to sink or swim. And I think part of that is just this league is so hard. It's so demanding. And your first year in the league, you really don't know any better. You have no idea what to expect. You're not prepared. It's impossible to prepare for it. So I think what you see a lot, especially with the junior college transfer, which I've had conversations about with Parker, which that was my case. I came in as a player, junior college transfer, really struggled with the bat that first year. And I just wasn't prepared physically, mentally, just the level of play I had never seen. A lot of times with those junior college players, you see that big step forward in year two. So I think that's something that you could see with Roland specifically. But I guess just a broader answer to your question is just the best way to develop, the best drill we have, so to speak, is just playing in the SEC. Like you just kind of being thrown into the fire, so to speak, is you're going to improve. It's the best thing for your development.
So on the topic of the catcher position, I mean, it's pretty easy to guess, but that's obviously the hardest one when you're like looking at the lineup right now. I feel like, at least for me, that's the hardest one for me to figure out. And I feel like you're probably the best guy to ask. I mean, you just talked very, very good about Parker Rowland and Hudson Polk, but you also got Hudson White and Ryder Helfrich. What do you do? I mean, what do you want to do at catcher right now?
Yeah, no, it's certainly a situation that we, or myself, has not been in 4 years, in terms of, you really hope you have two that you feel good about. I kind of like, or we like thinking about it on feel good about catching on a Friday night. Like that's kind of the threshold. Like if you feel good about him behind the plate on a Friday night, then they can do it. If you have two guys that you feel really good about, then that's a pretty deep catching room. And we have four. We have four this year where you feel really good about. Yeah, in terms of who you go with, I think everybody brings something a little bit different to the table. I think this first weekend against James Madison, you're going to see, I'd imagine, a little bit of a hodgepodge. But yeah, you have Hudson White, for example, bring him in from Texas Tech. He's got 2 years of experience in a really good league. Really special bat. One of the reasons that he transferred in, or he wasn't getting everyday time behind the dish at Texas Tech, and he wanted a chance, to be the everyday guy. And that was part of why he came in, is because he knew he would have a chance to be the everyday guy. There were some things that we, discussed with him through the recruiting process in terms of just pushing his development behind the plate. Because really in his track record, the bat's never been a question. It's just his ability behind the plate. And he's kind of taken it head on, bull by the horns. His work ethic the last however many months that we've had him has been pretty spectacular. And I'm excited for some of the scouts in particular, that maybe saw him early in the fall that haven't seen him again. I think they're going to see a completely different dude behind the plate. So I'm really excited for that. So this is a guy who's turned himself, in my opinion, into a pretty dang complete catcher that you feel good about, again, on a Friday night. Then let's go for Roland, the return. I mean, he's a returning catcher. You caught pretty near every game in the league for an SEC championship team. Like that's incredible experience. And, his issue last year, and he'd be the first to say it, he wanted to be a more productive offensive player. And like we kind of already talked about, he, those second-year JUCO guys, you usually see a pretty big step forward with the bat. And I hope I don't say it wrong. I don't have my fall stats, but I think he led the fall in home runs, or two. You guys would probably know better than me. So I think in the fall you saw that. You saw him take a step forward with the bat. And then Hudson Polk, a similar situation, plays a good amount last year. And again, I think he'd be the first to say it, first year in the SEC, he playing like he's holding on to something, kind of playing not to lose. I think this fall, behind the dish, offensively especially, he's a lot freer. He's been in the league a year. He knows what it's about. He's just playing loose, playing free. He was very productive this fall, and he's been extremely productive, especially with the bat, in these spring scrimmages. And then you've got Ryder Helfrich, who, maybe has just the most raw ability of any of them. His question, I guess, so to speak, is a freshman. And that's not fair to him, but it's the truth, So he is about to go on this gauntlet where you don't know how he's going to handle it. If I was a betting man, I'd be just fine thinking that he can handle it between the ears. Humble kid, works. So you've got four options that you feel good about, again, on a Friday night. And in terms of who you're going to see February 16th, we'll let the guy at the end of the hall make that decision. Hall of Famer, he's really good at that. But yeah, whoever we decide to play that opening game, but again, just what it materializes into as the season goes on, we've got options.
Changing topics completely, I want to present you with an observation that I made last year, and if I'm completely incorrect about this, you can certainly tell me as much. But
all righty,
and I don't want to step on all those fans who sit down on the first base side and have their fun with you at the sixth inning, right? The Bobby Chicken stick. your honest thoughts about that, because like, you know, sometimes it looks like it's a little tired, you know, you just do it to do it and you got to lock in because there's more important stuff to do. Is that accurate?
So my first game coaching first, they're yelling it, and I don't think I do it, or I had absolutely no idea it was a thing. And we had a manager from Fayetteville, so this would have been the 21 season, Matthew Schluterman, who grew up going to games his whole life. It's like, hey, dude, you gotta do the chicken dance. I'm like, what? I had no, and I mean, I don't remember when I played. I don't remember I had no idea. And then I kind of like have gotten the backstory about what it's about. Man, I think it's so fun. It's awesome. It's something that the people look forward to. I think it's kind of maybe I'm faking a little bit, like acting like I'm disinterested. Like I'm looking forward to bottom of the six. I had one of our analytics guys run some numbers. I go, hey, I want to know how we are offensively, bottom of the six at home. And I was hoping that we were a better offensive team than what the numbers came. I was hoping that bottom of the six was when we really raked. That ended up not being the case. Hopefully this year, bottom of the six will be a better offensive inning. But no, it's a lot of fun. I mean, there's people around town. I probably get Bobby chicken more than Bobby. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun.
I'm definitely gonna have to track those 6th inning splits this year.
Yeah, let's make that a priority as an offense this year. I don't care about any other inning, but we gotta win bottom of the six when we're at home. We gotta swing it.
I was gonna ask, what inning did they come back and say was the best inning?
Oh shoot. I'm not even gonna speculate. I've got the sheet somewhere in my office. Yeah, I just remember like, hey, I wanna know how we're doing 6th inning. This is important to me. This is something I gotta know. Yeah, no, that's a good question. I could dig into. I could open up a new tab, but
no, it's okay.
I don't want to leave the Zoom. Yeah.
No, you're good. So now, like, how much of your job, like maybe percentage wise, are you recruiting?
I think it depends on the time. So summer, it's 100. It's everything. It's like I'm rarely in Fayetteville. Maybe if we have like a portal kid or a transfer kid on campus, then you fly back for that. So yeah, so the summer is pretty much all of it, and then spring you try to get out when you can. We're not playing games. I guess they've got the rules about dead periods when you can't go out and stuff like that. But when you're able to go out, I mean, it's a lot of it. Yeah. So I know that doesn't really give you a percentage. It kind of depends on the time of the year. So if we're not playing games, it's 100% of the time.
Yeah.
I think I like saying with our guys, like the most important players in the program are the ones that are already here. So when we are able to work with our own guys, games like that's a priority for us, obviously. And then when they're out doing summer ball, when we're not able to be hands-on with them, then it's pretty much all recruiting.
This will be my last question, and then Robert can ask one more and we can get you out of here. As a guy who is in the thick of it, who's having these conversations, maybe, what's the biggest misconception about NIL? From your perspective that people have, because like I feel like so much of what we read or see is like just numbers thrown out there, and I feel like a lot of it's fake, honestly.
Yeah, that's you can go a lot of different ways with that question. Now again, I try to stay off of the app, so to speak, as much as possible, because there's some stuff out there that's just it'll put you in a bad mood. You don't. So when you say misconception, I don't know exactly the public perception, I guess, and I don't know if this is exactly the way you wanted me to go with, but thankfully we're at a place where I don't think the players are wanting to come here first and foremost for their earnings potential, which is a really good thing. I think the kind of kids we're bringing in and what the program is they're coming here first and foremost because it's just a fantastic place to play college baseball, develop into a professional, hopefully major league player, chance to win SEC championships, Omaha, chance to win national championships. Like that is the driving force for the guys that are coming here. Where I think there's other places where that's not, where it's almost like the first question is, what's my earning potential at university at whatever. Again, I don't know if that's exactly where you're going with that question, but I guess maybe that's a misconception. Is thankfully we're at a place where it's still about baseball first, which is awesome, which is a really, really good place to be in as a coach.
So I want to wrap it up with one thing. We've talked a lot about the team, a lot about you as a coach. I want to ask about you as a player. This is one we give to the players pretty routinely, and you can take this one of however many different ways you want. It could be the best pitcher you faced at Arkansas in scrimmages, the best pitcher you faced in college period, or even the best pitcher you faced in the minors. But who do you think was the best pitcher you ever faced?
So I faced Aaron Nola when he was at LSU his draft year. That was the first guy I had ever seen that would he could go like glove side sink. So if I'm a righty, right on right, it's like that pitch is going to hit a lefty and it's a strike on the outer edge. Had never really seen that in my Rolodex up until that point. So that put me in a mental pretzel. But he was the best arm I ever saw in college. Professionally, there was a lot. That's why I'm coaching now and not hitting. It's there was too many really good arms. I think Rick Porcello, I faced him. He was on a rehab start, and I think it was Lowell, so the short season affiliate of Boston. So Benintendi was playing center. It was our first year of pro ball, and Rick Porcello on the mound. And it was like the same shape of stuff as Nola. It was kind of in that same avenue. Trying to think. I coached against Aroldis Chapman. So like seeing that from the side, it was kind of like it was literally if you blinked, you didn't see it. So that from the side was really impressive. Trying to think the best guy I would have faced in like inter squad. I think probably Zach Jackson, inter squads. Like that was some loud stuff, and he was my roommate, and like he hit me too. Like I got hit a couple times in scrimmage. So like you're not really ever having a comfortable AB. That's probably the most uncomfortable AB is Zach Jackson. It'll go like 95 backstop, land a curveball. It's like, dude, that was yeah, that's a fun question. I think those are probably the three: Nola in college, Porcello in pro ball, and then Zach Jack inter squads. Those would be the three.
All
Great
right.
answers.
Yes, that's awesome. I wish we had more time to talk to you. Freaking Robert has to leave. I'm sorry about that, but
Hey, I mean, you can keep
Rob.
no, we'll have you back on, Bobby. But we really appreciate your time and wish you guys the best of luck this season.
No, absolutely. Appreciate you guys for the support. We'll do it again soon.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Bobby.
All right. Thank you guys.
You've been listening to the Diamond Hogs Podcast. Follow the guys on Twitter at Choate Mason and at DRStew32.